I think it's obvious why I'm making this video, right? I mean, this has been a pretty big subject as of lately. So yesterday, Jessica uploaded a video saying why she didn't want to play competitive Yu-Gi-Oh anymore for a wide variety of reasons. Fantastic video, by the way. She addressed a bunch of issues like card design being out of hand nowadays, pricing being mediocre, etc. And the reason why I'm making this video right here is to give you guys my own perspective, this time in a scripted video because I'm not as fluent. Oh, and also I'm still feeling a little sick, which is why my voice is kind of weird right now. Alright, so first things first, what is wrong with Yu-Gi-Oh at the moment? The first thing that comes to my mind is every deck in Yu-Gi-Oh feels identical regardless of how we try to convince ourselves that they aren't. The goal of practically every deck out there is to make unbreakable boards or to hand trap your opponent to death and then kill your opponent. And if you're not seeing hand traps, then you're seeing board breakers, and if you're not seeing big boards going first, then you're basically seeing FTKs. We kinda have a false sense of diversity, which is what I've always despised in this game. Over the past couple of years, you probably heard a lot of pro players say that they didn't really like the diverse formats and prefer the tier 0 formats, actually. The reasoning behind that is due to the fact that in tier 0 formats, you know what to expect, so you can actually get rewarded for doing your homework and preparing yourself pretty much just for that one deck. Whereas diverse formats, on the other hand, they can put you in awkward positions concerning your deck building choices. Yeah, sure, you've got more options, but at the same time, you only have 15 slots dedicated to your side deck and you can't cover everything. And that's my issue, because those diverse formats always end up feeling like some pick your poisons kind of formats, where you basically have to accept the L against a couple of matchups if you want to be prepared against the others. The thing is, though, even tier 0 formats starting inheriting this flaw without necessarily having the aforementioned quality. Therefore, I find myself hating tier 0 formats so much that I just want the pace of the game to revert back to what it used to be back in 2019. I've said this numerous times in the past, but I feel like the TOS format of 2019 was peak Yu-Gi-Oh, at least gameplay-wise. Every deck just felt like it was completely reasonable in terms of power level, and in terms of consistency we didn't really have any issues, and there was a decent amount of diversity in the format. But most importantly, even rogue decks could perform well since they weren't that far off from the meta decks. Orchist was a good deck, but it wasn't degenerate or anything. Salamangrade was the definition of balanced, and Sky Striker kinda just felt like it was a modern version of GOAT format. If anything, I want to say Sky Striker just had the most enjoyable back and forth games, and you were never really angry losing the dice roll with it or against it. Unlike modern day Yu-Gi-Oh, where the dice roll is almost the most important thing. Nowadays, anyone can pretty much tell who's about to win the duel depending on the opening hand, which is extremely pathetic. Like drawing 4 hand traps and preventing your opponent from making a board, and just to have your 1-card starter and an extender isn't really impressive or a nice comeback going second. And we're so used to seeing gigantic boards that we've become numb to pretty much everything the decks can achieve now. So yeah, the game should definitely slow down to approximately the same pace it was 5 years ago. You can tell that Yu-Gi-Oh is in a healthy spot if rogue decks are actually worth playing, so let's at least try to go into that direction first. Now, what has been holding us from being there in the first place? One simple word: power creep. So power creep in Yu-Gi-Oh is the concept of always introducing newer cards that make the older cards somewhat obsolete. And this has the potential of ruining pretty much every single game if it's not kept in check. And the one way to keep power creep in check is by having strict ban lists that punish those newer strategies or at least nerf their power level. The thing is though, I've realized that we've been having some of the softest ban lists as of lately, and usually when a ban list drops, it's always before like a super degenerate set. Alright, fantastic, so we're about to ban tier 0 tier elements. The only issue is that we're going to be giving you guys a full power Kashtira right after. The problem never gets fixed, it just gets replaced by another. And deadass, I've been saying this for like the past 4 years. I will be honest with you, there has been some pretty interesting formats every now and then, but the issue is they wouldn't last for too long, and sometimes they were off-season formats. For example, at the very start of 2024, in between the Rescue/Unchained format and the Snake Eyes format of Phantom Nightmare in February, we had a pretty cool format. Overall, practically every single deck was enjoyable to play because they were all watered-down version of what they previously were, or what they were about to be. And then obviously, once we got Phantom Nightmare, things ended up going super uphill from there. Uphill in terms of degeneracy of card design, by the way, not in terms of enjoyability of gameplay. Although I will once again have to state that even in these crazy formats, there are a bunch of decks that are super fun to play. Like just playing Solitaire and drawing hands and seeing how you can improve a board or, beat hand traps already feels really enjoyable. The issue is the games themselves don't really feel that way. It doesn't matter how powerful and expensive your deck is when your opponent's deck is pretty much the exact same way and also build the same way because that is the most effective way to do it. Now, there's always a tiny bit of innovation at the very start of each format. Regardless of how garbage they are, which is why I say that every deck deserves to exist for at least one format. The problem is that Snake Eyes was good since February, and I feel like if the next ban list is not a total hit, then we're gonna have a lot of problems moving forward. If all we do is ban Flamberge, then we're not really addressing the issue because this is not what the game needs right now. So to me at least, I see Snake Eyes as a middleman, so as an agent in between the overpowered cards that are being played generically and of course the players that are trying to abuse those cards. If all we do is ban Snake Eyes, then it'll just get replaced by another middleman, which in this case would be Yubel. And if Yubel gets banned, then it'll just be replaced by another one, and so on and so forth. The issue has never been the decks themselves, but rather the generic cards that are completely abusable. I've said this more times than I can count, but I don't believe that one single card should hold too much value. Which is why cards like IP Masquerena and Appaloosa are probably some of the biggest culprits as to why Snake Eyes is so successful. And people really don't understand how oppressive those cards are because people don't really play the game enough. All they do is watch YouTubers and they can't really think for themselves. I've also made a video on that. Anyways, if we can tackle the problem at the source, we're not just temporarily patching it, but we're rather fixing it permanently, I want to say. Now, another topic that I wanted to cover was the price support in Yu-Gi-Oh! I don't have that much to say in this one, so this segment will be a little shorter. Yu-Gi-Oh! Has terrible pricing almost on purpose because the goal of these high-level events is not necessarily to make you compete seriously. The goal is for you to have fun, gather up with your friends, make everlasting memories, etc. If the game had better pricing, it would also get much more competitive, which is a good and a bad thing. It's a bad thing because games being too competitive just have a tendency to bring the worst in people and can almost encourage some players to cheat in order to get what they want. Especially if there is high sums of money around, some people are willing to give up their dignity for some bread. Thing is, even with zero pricing almost, some people are still cheating in Yu-Gi-Oh! Which I do not comprehend at all. Anyways, better pricing is a good thing because it rewards you for the time and effort you invest into the game. It makes you feel like there's an actual incentive to picking up the best deck. At the current moment, you either play for glory or for $50 mats, which is absolutely pathetic. So personally, I play for credibility because as a YouTuber, it is my duty to perform well. If I am unable to do well at events, I lose credibility, and therefore my videos will have less value. Yu-Gi-Oh! Players are quite pragmatic, and they would much rather listen to someone with a lot of achievements rather than someone with little to none. So in other words, even if there were no prizes at all in Yu-Gi-Oh! I would still play it. Anyways, with all of that said, just remember that Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a hobby and not a career. You shouldn't base like your revenue solely based on the mats, the promos, and whatever else a card game can get you. But with that said, I do agree with the sentiment of high-level players who believe that the game isn't worth investing too much time and effort in, considering the return in investment. Especially when you gotta pay thousands on your deck, your hotel, your flights, your food, etc., and you're always negging if you're not getting first place very specifically. I think it would be pretty easy for Konami to up their pricing without necessarily making people hate whoever knocked them out of the tournament. I think, for example, the super rare prize card should be the entry prize. Prize cards nowadays are ass, so honestly, who cares? I also think the ultra rare prize card should be granted to everyone who tops the YCS. I believe that the winner of the YCS should be getting something special, like getting the opportunity to assist the creation or design of a card. And I think the whole Nintendo Switch thing for top 8 should be scrapped and replaced with something that players don't immediately sell for 50% of their retail price. I just want to believe that there is a solution for Konami to implement better pricing without necessarily ruining their budget while making everyone happy. If you have any ideas, please let me know in the comment section below, and as always, thank you guys so much for... Now, if you have any ideas on how to improve any of what I just mentioned, please let me know in the comment section below. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys very soon. Peace.